Stab your son, hold your baby hostage, and get slapped by Galadriel. The finale of Squid Game is here, where I butcher more Korean words than a white girl singing BTS. There is a lot to talk about, from Gi-hun's sacrifice, where all that money went, and the introduction of Cate Blanchett's character, which hints at a totally new spin-off developed by David Fincher. Of course, how can I forget the biggest question on everyone's mind?
Did y'all notice that there was no fat people in the whole thing?
Be warned, this isn't a recap, but a deep dive
like
into the
that.
show's biggest questions and theories. But before we begin, I give you the green light to like and subscribe. I'm only
This video
45
too.
billion
This
won
video too.
from being able to move out of my parents' basement. If you're like me, I did not have Cate Blanchett on my Squid Game bingo. Appearing in the credits as simply special appearance, her character is reminiscent of the Squid Game recruiters back in Korea. Now, there are some really interesting details.
Man,
everything from
season
her
1 is
suit.
so good. I just want to say that I think a blonde businesswoman is like perfect. It's like perfect Karen. It went to the right level. Smart, very smart decision.
Her briefcase and game of Dakchi all point at her being part of the broader international Squid Games. If you remember back in Season 1, the VIPs talk about Korea having the best of the games, implying there are different tournaments throughout the world.
The games this edition have been amazing.
Right, the contest in Korea was the best.
This brings us back to Cate, who can be seen here recruiting a down-and-out homeless man, keeping in line with the game's mission of recruiting men and women who are down on their luck. Now, the creator of the show, Hwang Dong-hak, has said this is the end of this particular story, but rumors have spread that an American spin-off is in the works, helmed by David Fincher. This wouldn't be a remake, but an entirely new story set in the Squid Game universe, and having Cate as the actress suggests she'll be in Fincher's show, since the two have previously worked together in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Oh,
I
interesting.
also want to
Okay.
talk about this long, knowing glance she gives Hwang In-ho. It's as if the two know each other. It may even suggest In-ho has been promoted to a more global position.
That's
in charge
interesting.
of running multiple games throughout the world. We know he's still with the company even after the self-destruction of the facility back in Korea. He gives Gi-hun's child her father's money, which he took back from the Pink Motel where he used to live. He rides in a Squid Game car, and the gift he gives Gi-hun's daughter is in the fashionable Squid Game black and pink.
That's a sweet
kind
box.
Of ironic that his belongings, which include his bloody jumpsuit, are in the same color box than that of the coffin.
That's a weird
Gi-hun
thing
would
to kinda
never been put in one of those coffins.
give somebody a
considering his
random,
body was
a blood-covered
most likely
outfit?
incinerated when the island self-destructed. Gi-hun's journey this season sees him in a final showdown with Lee Byung-gi, or
This
Player
guy.
333. He once ran a YouTube
Man.
channel called MG Coin, which I'm sure
making
Compzilla
YouTubers
has
looking bad.
regularly reported on. The final game puts Gi-hun in a precarious situation. Essentially, one of the three remaining contestants, himself, Myung-gi, and a baby, yes, that's correct, I said a baby, has to die in order for the games to come to an end. If they wanted to, Gi-hun and Myung-gi could throw the baby off the ledge and split the winnings together. But other than that making them absolute garbage human beings, there's a deeper connection these two have with this child. Gi-hun promised the baby's mother, Jun-hee, to keep the baby safe before her untimely death during the jump rope game. He also has this paternal connection with the child, remembering fondly how the baby reminds him of his own daughter.
그 아이가 태어나고 자라는 걸 지켜본 시간이 내 인생에서 가장 행복했던 시간이었어.
Myung-gi, on the other hand, is the baby's actual father. Now, you'd think he'd do everything in his power to save
this
his
guy
own
is-
child, but he'll end up threatening
He's
to
trash.
toss the baby over the
Like
edge
they keep-
himself.
like they keep saying and
According to the
comparing
show's
everybody in the-
creator,
in the
Myung-gi's
games.
character is a representation of society's ills and how people have come to prioritize self-interest and financial gain, even at the expense of their own child. Gi-hun is the complete opposite, representing how humans can be selfless and even give up their own lives for something greater. His last line even states, "We are not horses, we are humans, and humans are," before he falls backwards, never revealing what his last lines were to be. The horse metaphor is a nod to how the VIPs treat our competitors like horses at a racetrack to be bet on. In fact, it was horse racing that Gi-hun got himself wrapped up in that led to his death in Season 1. The ambiguity of this final line suggests it's up to the viewer to decide what humans actually are. In fact, the final episode is titled "Humans Are ... Humans have the capacity to be greedy and self-interested like Myung-gi, or generous and selfless like Gi-eun. And in a shocking turn of events, Gi-eun finds himself and the baby as the final two contestants. This happens after he's attacked by Myung-gi. However, the button to begin the game was never pressed. This creates a dilemma. According to the rules, only after the button is pressed does a death count, allowing the surviving competitors
the ability to kill everybody before they get there.
Myung-gi died before this button was pressed. It leaves Gi-eun and the baby as the final two, with one of them having to be killed. This is where Gi-eun makes the decision to sacrifice himself to save the child. If we go back to Season 1, Gi-eun started off as a man who believed money could solve all his problems. Not only has he transcended this way of thinking, but he's willing to give up something even more important, his life, in the pursuit of something greater. The decision is in direct contrast to the actions of
I like this part of the show, what they were trying to get across.
He's the most compelling character left in the series. This is a guy who previously won the 2015 Squid Game tournament, then came back to work at the very games which saw him brutally murder countless people. Why would someone want to take part in the games which turned him into the worst of humanity? This is a question echoed by his brother Hwang Jun-ho in his line to him stating, there are several answers for this motivation. One, In-ho lost everything during those 2015 games. His wife died while competing, and he himself lost his humanity when it's revealed he murdered several of the remaining competitors to solidify himself as the winner. And what better person to work for the games than someone who's lost his humanity? The games also offered him a new sense of purpose in a world he couldn't really go back to. The games also gave In-ho the ability to justify his actions by testing others who are put in similar situations. This is what I like to call a challenge of ideals, and another reason why he joins the games, mainly to test Gi-eun in particular. Gi-eun believes in humanity's goodness, while In-ho wants to destroy this belief in what I would argue is a twisted way to justify his own past actions. I'm talking about the night In-ho was tasked by Il-nam, the game's founder, to kill his fellow competitors to win the game. In-ho gives Gi-eun the same opportunity in the 2024 games, but unlike In-ho, he does not go through with it. Think about how earth-shattering this is to In-ho. I believe he went into these games wanting to change Gi-eun, but ended up changing himself. We'll see him then go through these extra hoops at the end of the season to ensure his brother, the baby, and Gi-eun's daughter are compensated, when technically he could have done nothing. With him still being a part of the games, it makes me wonder if he feels trapped, like being a part of them are his punishment for the sins of the past.
For me, that's what potentially makes this ending good, right? So this is not the ending we wanted. The Squid Game Season 3 ending is not what we, as an audience, feel good walking away from. We feel like it's unresolved, there's something lingering, but there is the potential for something more, to open things up and to continue, not just like an American spin-off and just have it quite isolated, but you could involve In-ho in that and connect the story more. The death of Gi-hun could provide an extra momentum for the story to continue forward. Not so integrated, but with the original series, but drawing enough of a parallel or connection that it doesn't seem like a cheap knockoff or a spin-off, right? But what's cool is In-ho, I mean, if this is what the director or the writer was going for, has this sort of switch, right? Where we have two individuals. One goes down the path of darkness and kills everyone to win the game. And the other one that was able to move past the game without sacrificing their humanity and being a good person, at least for the first game with Gi-hun. He didn't have to kill anyone. And his friend killed himself sort of for him. And then the table switches where the front man, In-ho, he sees what Gi-hun does and how he sacrifices himself and the good in him, that when he's looking to convince himself of his actions that he took and say, well, if I gave the knife to this guy and he kills these other men, these other people, then my actions were justified. But they weren't, because Gi-hun doesn't do that. So this ending could portray In-ho's turnaround, like going from darkness to light. So I think that's a pretty cool ending. So that's where I think season 3, the ending isn't bad. Everybody keeps saying that it's terrible and all this stuff. Sure, it's not necessarily what you wanted, but they didn't do something like Game of Thrones did. Game of Thrones, the ending was different just to be different, right? That's ultimately in Game of Thrones, Jon Snow should have become the hero and had his arc, etc., etc. And we could see what was coming or what should have came, but that's not what we got. And instead, we got something totally different that didn't make any sense at all. It makes sense. This is actually more realistic and more plausible. It's just something that we dislike because we want it to end in a natural heroic arc. But maybe it can end in a positive, with a sliver of light, sliver of hope and positivity in another manner. So that's where I think this ending was cool, because the season kept me the season was good because it kept me entertained the whole way around. Even though people died that I didn't want dying, the ending had its purpose, served its purpose. So that's where I think it's a pretty good show. I'm still happy with the show as a whole.
Punishment for the sins of the past. In-ho's brother, former detective Hwang Jun-ho, is left
There are
with
issues.
the baby and her prize money of
There are issues.
45.6 billion won, or roughly 33.5 million US.
Like how the front man's brother, the detective here, he basically spent all the season on a boat. That kind of is an issue. He could have come and maybe potentially saved Gi-hun at the end. That would have been cool. Or if he saw him again and he was trying to save him but didn't have a chance to. That would be interesting. But yeah.
Dollars. It's implied that Junho will raise the baby using this money so the both of them can live comfortably. His story seems over, however, it's up in the air whether he'll continue to pursue his brother in his search for answers. We also have the fate of former amusement park worker turned Squid Game
I'm just going to say that he should pursue his brother because he spent all these years doing that, and he found him again. He just said one or two lines and then lost him. So it's like, is he just going to retire because he got all this money? Or is he going to retire because of the responsibilities of raising a child? But regardless, it's like, I don't know. You'd think he'd still pursue that. So hopefully maybe there's something in the future for us to kind of get answers. But ultimately, that's one of the other issues that I have is I enjoy the season fully. I don't mind the ending. However, it's like it's incomplete. There is a little bit of incompleteness. So that's something that they could maybe potentially address.
guard Kang No-ul. And I know I pronounced that like Razogul, I'm sorry. Her journey in season 3 sees her saving a man by the name of Park Young-suk, the father of a young girl she befriended while working at the park. No-ul's backstory is, simply put, tragic. Growing up in North Korea, she became a soldier who killed her superior officer and escaped to the south, having to leave behind her newborn baby. She then spends all her time saving enough money to find and reunite with her daughter. While going through her files, she finds a photo of her husband and daughter with a caption reading, "Husband executed, daughter dead." This is what leads her to consider suicide, something she gives up.
No wonder
on
she was a
witnessing
ruthless
Young's
killer.
Sacrifice. 6 months after the games, No-ul receives a call from Park Man-chol, the broker who helps North Korean defectors into the south. Turns out her daughter might not be dead after all. When he gets a lead, she might be in Yanjing, China. The last we see of No-ul, she's on her way with a renewed sense of hope that her daughter is alive. There's also a nice tag when the brother of Kang Se-byok, who you'll remember as one of the final contestants in season 1, is reunited with his mother. She, like No-ul, was also a North Korean who defected. However, her mother was caught, forcing her to raise her younger brother in the south. The reason she joined the game was to raise money to hire this broker to find her mother. But with her dead, Gi-hun took on this responsibility, and now we see the fruits of his labor paying off. Even tertiary characters like Choi Woo-suk and
They got a
Kim
nice
Dong
ending.
get a wrap-up as they embark on sprucing up the Pink Motel, becoming its owner and head manager respectively. So while Squid Game may have come to an end, this seems to be just the beginning in a slew of new spin-offs that might take us all around the world. And if Fincher is indeed at the helm, we are definitely in very good hands. But now I turn it over to you. What did you think of Season 3? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below.
Squid Game Season 3. I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. Like I said, it was enjoyable all the way through. Certain individuals died, and like especially the transgender character. I like the actor that portrays that character. Great fighting scenes. Unfortunately, the way that character died was a little unbelievable. Turning their back with their military background and all that kind of stuff, and maybe they're caught off guard with the pregnancy or what have you. But I think the baby was born at that point in time, right? So maybe there's an excuse. There's little things that you can pick away at the way everything kind of came out the way it did. You know, how the one guy, the YouTuber, just lost his mind, started killing people before he needed to kill them, and he should have played it safe so that they went to the next platform. Like, obviously the writer had a goal in mind for this is how it's going to end, and I need to write it just enough to get things across, but and have that story play out that way. But it is, you can pick it apart a little bit, but not so much that it's a dud and whatnot. So overall, great. Milk, what's up, man? Squid Games, that's right. Did you check out season 3? I thought the ending was pretty good, but I know a lot of people didn't like it. And I know it could have been better. I think that I saw online somewhere, an article I saw that they had a different ending. I have not seen any Squid Games material. Wow, okay, well then I'm not going to say anything because you should go and watch it. But yeah, basically they had a different ending for an individual that shows up in America